Lusaka, capital of Zambia. Lusaka, as all large cities, has some installations indicating progress, like the cooling tower of the power plant shown here. But in tropical Africa, more than in any other region, appearances are all too often deceiving. The progress of a country cannot be appraised properly by the scenery provided by the capital, though most foreigners do not venture further to form their opinions. For optimum results, modern cities are supposed to be planned by experts through a process which takes time and is very expensive. The juxtaposition of various structures here illustrates that development proceeds in a jumbled-up manner and with confusing styles of architecture. The building in the center is the High Court of Lusaka, where judicial proceedings still continue in style inherited from the British colonial power. Judges appear in powdered wigs, and attorneys, unlike in the US, maintain a low profile. As some laws have little meaning in the remote tribal areas, justice has to be adjusted accordingly. In the southern end of Lusaka, the city landscape ends abruptly, and various humble structures appear helter-skelter. The population of the capital can only be estimated, somewhere around 1 million or so, as the adjacent slum areas inhabited by the migrants are increasing rapidly. The government has attempted to build some suburb-type housing, but the effort was bungled considerably. The small structures can hardly accommodate the usual large African families and the relatives crowding in. Moreover, to limit expense, over large tracts the roofing was simply corrugated iron sheets with no insulation against the heat. With temperatures over 100 degrees for considerable periods, families simply camp outside with debris, human waste, etc. scattered everywhere. As there are very few shops over the extensive suburbs, some of the basic necessities are provided by vendors called peddlers, parking under the few shady trees. They are supposed to be licensed by the police, but my research has indicated that several were jailed off and on, mainly for failing to bribe the police. The peddler shown here was very friendly and surprisingly frank, partly because when he was sick I visited him and brought along some medicines and also a few pounds of sugar and some bread to the family numbering 8 persons. He was the only person with gainful employment based on private enterprise. The annual opening of the university is a great opportunity for public celebration. Here the Chancellor is followed by President Kaunda and other high dignitaries. Kaunda has a high school education only, but as expected, holds an honorary PhD. The university is a thoroughly bodged-up structure built as a single unit, some 500 yards or so in length. Second and third floors often have no direct connections on the level, and there are staircases ending suddenly nowhere. The equipment was donated by numerous Western countries and includes even a huge electron microscope in 1972 donated by the USSR, but with nobody to know how to operate. The faculty is composed from at least a dozen countries, generally with 2-year contracts with all possible socio-economic and political ideologies. A particularly vexing problem was the utterly negligent maintenance by the staff headed by a Zambian. Classrooms were swept only occasionally. Toilet paper disappeared a day after it was distributed. Vehicles for field work were very poorly maintained, and so on. Complaining somewhat loudly could bring the charge of racism, as 95% plus of the faculty were not Africans, hence it was best to ignore the conditions. The Chinese offered a major assistance to build the Tanzam Railroad from the main line from Lusaka to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The major reason was to make Zambia near independent from the rail and road connections to South Africa. The Chinese also had a major exhibition in Lusaka to further promote friendship. At this exhibition, I asked for Mao's little red book at the main counter, but was refused by stating that it was not in stock. Other celebrations, similarly meaningless, were organized to demonstrate eternal friendship among the socialist countries. But with the difficult and costly experiences of the Chinese building the rail line, relations between the two countries have receded to practically nothing by the 1980s. As could be expected, the soccer match between the Chinese and the Zambians ended in a draw. Overall, the Chinese, considering themselves the citizens of Heavenly Kingdom, had a very low opinion of the Zambians, and there was definitely no socializing under whatever pretext. Practically all the work on the rail line was also done by the Chinese, as the Africans simply declined to work hard and were often absent for no good reason. The photo here shows a shocking event affecting the University of Zambia. As Kaunda, the president, has demonstrated increasingly incompetence and self-aggrandization in running the country, the university student delivered a stinging criticism of the father of the country, which was widely publicized. As a reaction, Kaunda simply closed the university in 1971. The students were thrown out of the residence halls by the police and the military and trucked home. The students were allowed to return in 2 months. Meanwhile, under my 2-year contract, I had a nice holiday with a new Land Rover and all the gasoline needed, provided by the university to conduct any type of research. Once classes resumed, I had taken a photo of my advanced class. The students remained friendly at all times, and the event was not discussed for obvious reasons. The mismanagement of Zambia under Kaunda reached an explosive status in the mid-1980s when he was attacked by his own police guard and seriously wounded. Since that time, he has been living in a closely guarded lodge with no contact to the outside world.